Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us at Cycle for Sustainability through the Big Bold Jewish Climate Fest. If anyone would like to have a brief discussion before we start our virtual bike ride, I invite everyone to turn on their videos and unmute themselves. Um, I will start off by welcoming everyone and introducing myself. I am Sarah Pilvin. I use she, her pronouns. I'm calling you from Brooklyn, New York. I am here representing Chazon, the Jewish Lab for Sustainability. And I would love to get to know everyone here. I was about to say good morning to everyone, but I don't want to make assumptions about everyone's locations. Nashon, I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us where you're calling from and what brought you here today.
So I'm calling from the Garden of Eden called South Florida. I live in Boca Raton. I am a teacher in a Jewish day school in the high school, and I'm a rabbinical student with Jewish Renewal. And I chose this house so that I can bike to school. So I frequently bike to school, but I'm a very lone wolf on this. I get my kids to join me. And my goal is to think how to move more of my fellow Floridians into biking.
Sounds like we may have some resources for you. So I'm happy to connect with you later about this. Zarki, if that's how I pronounce it correctly, I would love for you to introduce yourself.
That's correct. I may not be staying for the whole thing, but I am a Pittsburgher, although currently I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina, where my wife has a house. So we have a little less snow and a little bit warmer down here. I bicycle quite a lot. I ride a recumbent. I've done the Chazon ride in 2007. I've bicycled from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C. twice. I bicycle for commuting and for recreation, running errands. I do have a car for long distance, but I try to bicycle as much as I can. And I think I said I'm into recumbents, so I have a whole fleet of recumbents, including a tandem recumbent.
Wow, that is very cool. So between you and Nashon, and I see that Alice is saying hello from Hawaii. I'm feeling very, very jealous. We're expecting snow today in Brooklyn. So thank you, Brian. You are also in snowy DC. So I'm happy that you all have, or many of you have a nice cycling weather. Is there anyone else that would like to join in and introduce themselves? Daniel, I see that you unmuted. Anyone else?
I guess I can chime in. Sorry, my computer screen just cracked the other day, so I'm hooked up to my TV. So you guys are in the big screen, but I don't have a camera working for the computer. Anyway, so I'm in DC, which actually over the past maybe 10 years or so has definitely beefed up the amount of bike lanes and bike infrastructure, which is great to make it safer as much as possible for cyclists. And I ride my bike most days, especially during the pandemic. Ride it in Rock Creek Park, which is closed off to traffic now every day. So I can have a traffic-free ride for the most part. And it's been great and to kind of ground myself and get some nature and get some exercise in during the pandemic. But yeah, I've been biking a lot more.
That is fantastic. Thanks so much, Brian. It's lovely to meet you. As Zarki so lovely alluded to earlier, Chazon is real big on bike rides. One of the things that is so incredible to me about cycling is that it is such a sustainable act. It's so good for you emotionally and physically. And you're really able to connect with nature through that way. Just feels like all of the positives in one, saves you a lot of money. And one of the projects that we work on at Chazon is an annual bike ride in Israel called the Israel Ride. It is a fundraising event that benefits both Chazon and the Arava Institute for Environmental Studies in Israel. And it's a bike ride that really supports the environmental justice work and the peace building work of both of those beneficiary agencies. Because we do this annual bike ride, it was really, really anticipated for 2020. And then, of course, some unforeseen things came up and we could not travel to Israel, but we did not want that to stop people from enjoying the benefits of the Israel ride. So we did something really cool, and we actually created a video of the cycling route, a very condensed video of the cycling route that we do on the Israel ride. And I thought it would be really cool for those interested if we wanted to cycle that route together. So if you have any stationary bike, if you're on a Peloton, Zwift, I was about to say Roku, that's not it. There's another one that Ruvi, I think, or any stationary bike, feel free to join us. This is going to be a 50-minute video. I'm going to screen share. I know on Peloton there's a just ride option. I'm pretty sure on most stationary bikes there's a just ride option. Feel free to cycle with us for this 50-minute video. Afterwards, we will all come back together and discuss favorite rides, different tips and tricks that we have, and how we can incorporate cycling and sustainability more into each other's lives, and maybe help our communities and families also incorporate that. So I am going to share my screen shortly and play this video, and then we can all reconvene in 50 minutes.
We can't hear the sound. Please share screen with the sound.
Sharing with sound would be helpful. Apologies. One more time. Share sound. There we go. Correct this time? People can hear? Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
How's everyone doing? Ryan enjoyed. Awesome.
What was the total mileage on that?
That is a fantastic question. So a little bit about the Israel ride. I mentioned it's an annual bike ride in Israel. We go from Jerusalem to Eilat. There are actually 3 different riding groups. I believe the mileage ranges from 175 to 350. But I should probably know those numbers better offhand. But depending on which group you're in, it's one of those amounts.
Great.
I know that for me personally in Brooklyn, New York, it is very nice to be reminded of sunny, happy Israel days. One of the very cool things about the Israel ride is, at least for me personally, it combines so many different things that I feel passionately about. I love Israel. I think that it's just such a beautiful, unique way to experience Israel on a bike. It is giving back to the land genuinely, I think, by cycling and not using any other vehicle. And you really form a great community with other people that you cycle with. So I happen to think the Israel ride is particularly cool. I am very happy to share additional information about it in an email that I send out afterwards. I'll also share a recording of the Zoom. So if anyone wants to reuse the video that we were just watching for any cycling throughout, feel free to do so. I would love to hear if anyone wants to share how or when they got involved in cycling, how it plays into your life, how you incorporate it into your sustainability practices, or vice versa. Zarky, you look like you have something to say.
I'd like to say a little more about the Israel ride. So I went in 2007, and the video doesn't really give
Do
you
it
a flavor.
justice.
Doesn't give you a flavor of all the other things that happened aside from the riding. I mean, there were programs every evening. There were stops along the way. There were seminars. There were all sorts of things going on, and you did make many good friends on the trip. We had 11 people from Pittsburgh that went the year I went, and I didn't know any of them real well. I knew most of them casually, but we became really good friends on the trip. And after that, we started doing a yearly ride that I organized. We all would take a week in the summer and go on trips to various places, such as Idaho, Canada. We went up, well, I forget all the places, but became a really good group of friends and continued to this day. So it was very valuable across the board, and people that had not been that involved either in cycling or in Israel or Jewish things became much more involved in all of the above. So I would highly recommend it.
Thank you very much for selling my programs better than me, Sarki. I sincerely appreciate it. One of the things that I find to be very cool about the Israel ride is I just started working for Chazon a little less than a year ago. I was able to be in the office for a whole week before we all got kicked out because everything closed down. So I feel lucky that I was able to meet some of my colleagues in person. And I've met so many different Israel riders, and I've just really never met such an engaged community, and a community so dedicated and passionate about this annual trip. And it's really, even though I've never physically been on the Israel ride, I feel like a part of it. It's really, really cool, the community that's made through this annual ride and how dedicated everyone stays to keeping in touch with each other and having local rides and keeping in touch with the crew and volunteers. It's very, very cool. When did you say your first year was, Sarky?
2007,
2007. Got to get you back for 2021.
perhaps.
Notice that the shoulders were very inconsistent. Is that a problem?
Say that again, Alice?
The shoulders are very inconsistent. You know, sometimes there was a lot of space, sometimes there was no space on the shoulders. Is that a problem?
It was not a problem. There was not that much traffic, and there were so many bicycles that kind of took over the road. In busy areas, they had police, but most of the ride was not that busy. The hills
Oh
were
yeah,
more of a
we
problem.
hire police to be there throughout. They're very strict about that.
Mhm. And there's a sag wagon that goes along. If people have problems with tires and stuff.
Oh yeah, we have a very dedicated group of mechanics and medics and anything that you may need, we got you covered.
Mhm.
Alice, where are you calling from?
Hawaii.
Oh, that's right, Hawaii. Wow, what time is it by you?
Now it's about 5:30.
Oh, a.m. Thank you so much for joining us. Wow.
Thanks for doing that. And so, yeah, it was fun doing the cycle, the virtual cycle. That was great.
Yeah, I'm still very impressed that you're up and at 'em at 5 a.m. cycling with us. Thank you so much.
Let me mention about the riding. I went, my wife, my late wife, went with me, and she's not a very strong cyclist. Her maximum was about 20 miles a day. So I would do the whole thing. She would do her 20 miles and then get picked up by the sag wagon and ride the rest of the way in the sag wagon. And she said that she got, on every day that she rode, she got to say hello to everyone on the ride, because they would all come up and pass her and say, on your left, on your left. So she saw everybody on the ride and was always in last place, but still enjoyed it greatly.
So how many days is it?
It's 5 days of riding and it's a 7-week trip total.
Got it.
Yeah, something that we like to say about the Israel ride is it's a ride and not a race. Something that is cool is we have cyclists of all different abilities and backgrounds come. And as I mentioned, we have different riding groups. And there are some really, really advanced cyclists who come, and they actually choose a more mid-level riding groups because they just want to be able to take their time. And we have really, really cool options for any group that you decide to go on, and everyone is really supportive and just everyone's there to have a good time. No one's there to make anyone feel inadequate, and everyone is there to really help each other out. It's very cool. And I know all this just from talking to people. Again, I have still not been on the physical Israel ride. So what kind of cycling do you do in Hawaii, Alice?
I'm a fair weather cycler, but it's mostly fair weather all the time. But yeah, I stay out of the city. I mean, I don't like to cycle in traffic, but we have a very active Beaky bike program where there are bikes all over the place that lots more people are now cycling, you know, because it's healthier and it's accessible. But you know, I started cycling just from doing triathlon. So
wow.
that really got me going, and that was great. But these days I like to cycle the back roads, you know, sort of on the other side of the island. Yeah. But the best thing that I did was the Hawaii Bicycle League is very, very active, you know, physically and also politically, very, very active and sort of trying to build more accessible roads for bikes and stuff like that. But one thing we did a number of years ago is 22 of us got on this boat that goes around the islands. And from the Hawaii Bicycle League, there were 22 of us. We took our bikes into our rooms and we shared rooms, like 4 of us in a room with our bikes. And each island, it was the Pride of America boat that goes around the islands. And we just took our bikes off on each of the islands and we cycled around the islands and we put them back on the boat. It was fabulous. We had a wonderful time. And everything's now is, of course, on hold. But yeah, Hawaii Bicycle League was very, very active. So
That sounds fantastic. As I mentioned before, I'm calling from Brooklyn, so I do not actually ride here because I do not have a death wish. I do host a lot of virtual rides through my job. I've been trying to figure out if I can expense a Peloton. Unfortunately, my requests have been denied. Nonprofit life, it's really, really difficult. Brian, if you're still with us, I'd love to hear about your DC cycling.
Okay, yeah, I'm still here. This is the first time I'm using these headphones and the mic. So does the mic sound okay?
Yep, sounds
Okay.
perfect.
So I've been in DC for like half my life. When I first started biking here, I still had my like old 10 speed. And long story short, I've graduated from that to like a crappy Huffy and then a Mongoose. And now I've got a decent, kind of still novice giant bike, but it's good for getting around the city, dealing with potholes. I put some good tires on it to deal with the winter weather and the leaves and so forth. But yeah, I would say before the pandemic, most of my riding was mainly just to do errands and a little bit of recreation. And then since the pandemic, I've been doing obviously a lot more recreational rides. I did on that crappy Huffy. I don't know how I did it, why I did it, but this is many, many years ago when I was young. When you're young, you're not quite thinking clearly. So I did this fall foliage ride, and that's like the only ride that I've like big, group ride that I've done from what I can recall. And I think it was 2 days. I think the first day I did something like 40 something miles. And then the second day, maybe 20 something on that not so good bike. I did one other longer bike ride on my own, maybe, I don't know, 10, 15, actually more than that, maybe like 15 years ago, 20 or 20 years ago. The funny thing is that day I had to work in the late afternoon, so I kind of bit off more than I can chew. But luckily at the end of my bike ride, I found somebody with a van and an extra spot on his bike rack, so he drove me the rest of the way to my job, and my legs were like jello. That was probably like a 50-mile ride, maybe on a Mongoose bike. But yeah, I mean, the Giant's good that I have right now. I've thought about doing group bike rides, but I haven't done that many, and I haven't done that anything in the past, 10, 12 years or so. That's been a group bike ride. So it's still on my radar. A lot of it is cost and so forth. And now with the pandemic, obviously people aren't riding in groups. So just kind of waiting and seeing what happens. But here in DC, I have been, have seen a lot of change with, like I said, the bike infrastructure. It's gotten a lot better. There are bike shares that have been here for, I think, one of the first cities to get the bike shares, at least on the East Coast, called Capital Bike Share. So there's a big bike lobby here called the Washington Area Bicyclist Association, or WABA, and they lobby for bike safety and so forth. And they're really good getting things done or trying to get things done. So I've been in a couple bike crashes. I don't like to call them accidents. So I'm definitely, an advocate for safety, and, WABA does part of that. So hopefully we can make the streets even safer here in DC. But in the meantime, I'm enjoying the traffic-free rides in Rock Creek Park while they still have it closed to traffic. So not sure how much longer that's going to last, as things open back up after the pandemic, but we shall see. I was just curious about the cost of the bike ride, the Hudson Zone.
Oh yeah. First of all, I just want to say that WABA is now my new favorite acronym.
Cool.
That is so cool. And thank you very much for sharing. Today is actually our last day of early bird registration. So if you register for the Israel ride today, then it is $650. Tomorrow it jumps up to $800. There is a fundraising minimum. Proceeds go, as I mentioned, to Chazon and the Arava Institute for Environmental Studies. Those are the two beneficiaries of the Israel ride. Depending on on what your needs are, we have different fundraising minimums. The general fundraising minimum is $4,200. We also do have young writer scholarships and grants and other ways to get you on the ride if that's something that's not feasible for you. We also have a Chaverim group. Chaverim is Hebrew for friends, which is our non-cycling group. So if you have any still actively mobile friends who are interested in joining but are not cyclists, we also have that option for them. And I mean, really, Zarki did a fantastic job talking about the ride, but it's really an incredible experience, and it supports really crucial environmental justice and peace building work that Chazon and the Arava Institute for Environmental Studies are doing. It mentioned in the video, but I don't know how focused you were on the words when you were huffing and puffing, but a lot of the crew that we have are actually alumni from the Arava Institute. And it's just a very cool, I feel like I keep on saying cool, I can't think of better words to use. It's a really insular community. People really just keep coming back, and it's very cool to see how dedicated people are to the ride and the beneficiaries. It's just an amazing experience and an amazing group of people. If you would like to learn more.
When is it? When is it?
Oh,
Sarah?
that would be very helpful information to share.
April?
This year, the ride is October 19th to 26th.
Mhm.
And I'll be sure to also send additional information in the follow-up email to everyone. It is now 10:50 by me. It is approximately 3 a.m. or something by Alice. I want to thank everyone so much for coming and riding together. It was really lovely getting to know all of you and hear your stories and backgrounds and how and where you cycle. If you are interested in hosting a local or virtual ride in your community, or you're interested in learning more about different ways to get yourself or your family or community involved in different sustainability projects or cycling projects, please feel free to reach out to me. Again, I'm going to send a follow-up email with my information. And it was lovely spending this morning with you. Thank you all so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank
Take
you,
care,
Sarah.
everyone.
Yep.
Bye.
Shavua tov, everyone.
Shavua tov.